This is going to be a little bit interactive, so you'll have to pay attention. I thought I'd talk about timelines because they're really quite important, and they illustrate to other people how we function, which in business is quite useful, and also in the line of work that I do, that's also very important. But it's not just useful in business, it's useful in all relationships. So the timeline is organized by our unconscious mind, and memories are also organized by our unconscious mind, and they are put on a timeline. So there's two categories of people. There are in-time people and there are through-time people. What's the difference, you might say? So in-time people are very much in the moment. They have no boundaries, so they quite often run over other people's boundaries without realizing. They're invariably late. They leave things to the last minute. They probably don't have a diary. They forget what's been said or done whenever it was in the past. And in-time people, they have found, are mainly, no, not mainly, but quite often drug addicts are in-time people. So by taking drugs, they don't have any concept of what the consequence is going to be in the future. So what they do, the therapists do, is they change the drug addict's timeline to be through time, and then they do have a concept of what the consequences will be in the future if they take the drugs. And so it's an interruption of their pattern of the way of working. Through time people, like my goodly self, find in-time people annoying, because we're always punctual to the point of being painfully early. So as you may or may not be aware, I'm off to Hawaii in a couple of weeks' time, and our flight will be about 9 or 9:30. I will get us to the airport for 6, because you go down the motorway, things happen. And so I like to be in the airport, and then all I have to worry about is what I'm going to have for breakfast, and then I can people watch. So I like to be punctual. I do have a diary, and I do have boundaries. So with my diary, I know what I did last week, and I can tell you what I'm doing in the future. Interestingly, with through time, I do all my learning in through time. And I did an exercise whereby I changed my timeline and became in time for about 20 minutes. And I needed to write my phone number up on a board. I couldn't remember it because it wasn't in the place I'd expected it to be, because I'd changed my timeline. So I had to go back to my through timeness to be able to access my phone number to be able to write it down. Changing your timeline can be very useful, especially when you're a through time person, because I don't know about anybody else, but there have been many times when I've been in bed and I haven't been able to switch my head off. I've been really, really tired, but things are just buzzing around all the time. So what you can do is actually change your timeline to be in time, which then goes, oh, I'm tired, I need to sleep. And then I have a little arrangement with my unconscious mind to make sure I'm through time when I wake up. So what I thought we might do is elicit your timeline. So you can find out whether you're an in-time person or a through-time person. Chances are you already have an inkling as to what you might be. So a through-time person generally has their timeline. If we were to imagine a line in front of us going from left to right, if you're a through time person, that will be slightly in front of you. So you'd be able to see the line in front of you. So you'd be standing back from it a little bit. Now, it could be a straight line, it could be a curve, it could be anything you like. Whereas an in-time person, think of the line again, but the in-time person will be on the line so that the timeline runs through them. And that's why they have no concept of time, because they're very much in the moment. They can't see what's behind them, and they're not really bothered about what's happening in front of them because it hasn't happened yet. So when I did my training in timeline therapy, they asked us to describe our timelines. And one lady, it was just quite amazing. If you're into Star Wars, this will probably make more sense to you. But imagine a wheel, like an old-fashioned wheel with the center point, and then you've got the spokes. So that was her timeline, but she had it in 3D. So she had one wheel, which was now, one wheel underneath that, which was the past, and one wheel on top of that, which was the future. So she could access any one of those at any time, and they were all sort of connected together. So she could go from one point along a spoke to the middle bit and then transfer to somewhere else, or she could go around the outside. So that's quite wowie. So in terms of therapy or counseling or coaching, whatever you want to call it, then that's one of the ways, or this is one of the ways that I help people find what's going on for them in terms of a problem or an issue. And so we go onto the timeline and go into the past. And quite often the question I ask is the root cause of this, the first event, before, during, or after birth? And when I say after birth, that's up to 7 years. So it can be in the womb as well, or it can be before that. So it can be generational, or it can be past life. It's not about past life regression, because we're not necessarily interested in what the past life was. The purpose of accessing those past memories is to find that root cause that's causing the problem now, and to get the learnings from that one so that we can release the negative emotions around it. So it incorporates that saying of, if only I knew then what I know now. And so that really helps. So what we do is we go to the root cause, we find the problem, we get the learning, we release the negative emotions, and then we do what's known as a gestalt, which is like a line of dominoes. So more often than not, when we have a problem, we get very good at it, and we do it various times all the way through our lives to where we are now. So what happens with the gestalt is you've released it from the first event, so you then knock on effect with the domino effect. So you knock the first one, which is the root cause, and then it clears out any other incidents throughout your life to now, so that it no longer exists. It doesn't mean that you never experience the negative emotion again. It just means that that negative emotion is not linked to a past memory, which means that then you become emotionally flat with it, and it's no longer an issue. So from a positive perspective, you can look in the future. Now, I was dealing with a client who was having relationship issues, and although she wasn't particularly happy with her partner, she desperately wanted a child. And in her eyes, the guy that she was in the relationship was, while he wasn't her ideal, he would do as the father. So we took her onto her timeline and took her into the future, and we stopped and we looked, and sure enough, further down the line, I can't remember how many years it was now, but further down the line, she actually had a child, and it was a girl. And so she was happy with that, because I said, well, you know, it may not be this person who's the father, it may be somebody else, but you will have a child, and it will be a girl. That was her last session with me. 18 months later, she contacted me. She had not only got pregnant with him as the father, she'd had a little girl. So that's how powerful this stuff is. And I'm open to questions. So thank you very much for listening.
Absolutely perfect. Bang on timing, Stella. Thank you so much. We do, guys, have a couple of minutes for questions. Does anyone have one already? If not, I do. Laura, you go first.
So you talk about like the in time and the through time sort of. So people can be, they are one or the other. Is that what you're saying? And then you sort of.
Yes, it's on a continuum as well. So essentially I'm through time, but I also have to be in time when I'm with a client, because I have to deal with what's happening now, but I have to be aware that that in timeness is within a through time surrounding the structure, if you like.
Okay.
And we fluctuate in and out as well. So although one dominates, you know, there are times when you need to be in time or you need to be through time. I lived with a guy who was quite in time at times. And he would say to me, what time do we need to leave? And I'd say, need to leave at 9 o'clock. So I'd be ready, suited and booted at 8:30. And at 10:02, he'd say, oh, I'm just going for a shower now. So I really pushed all my buttons. And annoyingly, he was always ready on time. So he was still ready at 9 o'clock. I'm like, how do you do that? So.
Oh, okay.
I love that explanation, Stella, because that's just made me realise that's exactly what my husband does. I actually give him countdown timers to when we need to leave the house because I get so annoyed with him. But no, my question, Stella, and it's I don't know, maybe it is a question, maybe it isn't. But what I noted down, you know, when you were talking about the line, and then you gave us that example of the lady that had the 3 circles that were connected. When someone asks me to think of a line, I can only ever think of a line between A and B, whether it's straight or curly. I couldn't make a line into a circle. So does that mean that I don't have vision, or is it just that I take things too literally, or would it impact it?
No, your line, I mean, it's called a line because it's from between A and B. How you get there is irrelevant. So my timeline has changed over the years. So my timeline originally, because I'm through time, was more or less a straight line in front of me. But then when I went to access it, it was like a mezzanine. So it was like a stairs up. It was an incline up, and then it leveled out, and then it went up again. So, and that again has changed over the years. So even though today you might elicit your timeline and think, oh, well, it's this shape, when you come to use it again, it might have moved. Because the thing is that when we do personal development and we grow and evolve, then our perceptions change, and things that were dyed in the wool, if you like, aren't there anymore, and they've moved. So that will affect everything else.
Brilliant, thank you. Do we one final question? Yes, still.
That's really interesting what you said, Stella. Thank you for sharing. And I think I'm a through time person, but then sometimes I want to be an in time person or people, but I can't. I find it really difficult. And the reason I sometimes want to be an in time person is maybe my reaction to other people, and I think, well, they've treated me like that, so let me try and do what they do. But I just find myself coming back and I feel it's unnatural for me, and I just can't do it. I wish I could, but I just find it really unnatural. I'm very much a through time person.
Yeah, that's why in time people drive me nuts, because they're not punctual. They don't have diaries. They don't have any boundaries. And so it does push buttons, but it's a matter of just allowing them that space and allowing you to be you. You will be in time in certain situations. You know, that you have to be true to yourself. Yes, you can train yourself to be more in time or more through times, but if it really isn't working in that particular situation, don't do it. Be who you are.
Thank you.
Jane, very quickly, and then we will have to move on. That was
hopefully it's only a quick question, but do opposites attract? Do the two types of people actually get on better together or not?
What you mean, two through time people or two in time people? Or
so do people go to get together better if one is more organized and plans things and the other one is totally disorganized, so therefore uses their organization? Or, you know, how is there a better option or not?
The in time person wouldn't care because they're in
Right.
time, so they have no concept of what's organization. Why would they bother? The only person it'll impact on is the through time person, because they'll just get seriously ticked off. Now, Ken is also a through time person, but I'm more through time than him. And also our through timeness is different.
Okay.